This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
You're joking. Well, let's get back to it.
Boris Johnson and Tony Blair. You remember Tony Blair, don't you? Yeah, that's him. And John Major, that led Britain's 7 former Prime Ministers attending the King's coronation at Westminster Abbey today. Blobby Johnson arrived holding his wife Carrie's hand, using it to hold himself up, it looked like. He always seems like he's peering through a hangover.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
He always looks like he's slept in the garden. And, of course, he didn't pull a comb through his hair because his image is his #1 priority.
Under my leadership, the government's priorities are your priorities.
Boris Johnson's #1 priority is to make his hair and his appearance just so. His dishevelled look. That I can't take care of myself, mummy. It's intended to disarm and bring out people's mothering instincts. And he can't let the image slip, even for a moment, no matter what the occasion. So he looks in the mirror just before he comes out the house, and then he puts his hand through his hair in order to dishevel it. Oh! Nailed it. He must have been the only person in that entire ceremony that had not done his hair. Or rather, he had done his hair, it's just that he has undone his hair and everyone else did their hair. He undoes it. That's right, he undoes it. I'm going to stick with that. Theresa May was there. I mean, I didn't see what she was wearing below her ankles, but I assume that she was not wearing her comedy clown shoes. And Liz Truss was there because she used to be the Prime Minister too.
Absolutely.
Can you believe that?
No.
No, me neither. What an absolute shower Boris Johnson is. I mean, when was the last time you ever saw... Have you ever seen him look, like, remotely? We're on nodding... nodding... What's the phrase? Nodding... acquaintance. Nodding acquaintance? Nodding acquaintance with smart. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. Because otherwise I just may never finish that sentence. Text and tweets and such from last night. Let me see how many pages. Oh, God, 7 pages. And they're already coming in from tonight now. I'll never get through it. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Alex texts, I went to a polling station and was shocked to see a bloke voting for himself and his wife. Perfectly legal. He'd been told he can cast his vote, but then he has to leave the polling station and come back later to cast his wife's vote. What? Explain this to me, says Alex. I can't. Katie says, surely a loss of 1,000 plus seats should automatically trigger a general election, says Katie, who is at this moment having her front door beaten in by the police, who don't appreciate that sort of talk. It's not a free country, Katie. Don't imagine that it is. Die emails. Good news, bad news, rather. Bad news, Nick. The coronation clashed with the snooker. I wanted to see both, but I couldn't record them because I'm old and stupid, says Di. Snooker? I thought that was over. Hadn't somebody won? One of those pale people who look like they've never seen the light of day. Hasn't that been won already? Does anybody actually care about the snooker?
No.
I can't imagine that they do. That's a 1970s thing, isn't it? I thought snooker was big in the 1970s. It seems to have made a comeback, probably because TV companies can just put it on and just leave it on, like for what seems like forever. And no effort required at all. You don't have to have somebody write a script. You don't have to have people acting it. It just goes on and on and on and on. And I suppose I assume it gets an audience, although I can't imagine why. Paul says, I'm half expecting Boris Johnson to crash the ceremony waving a sword and claiming some... I can't say that. Some moist woman in a pond gave it to him, so pass the hat. Yeah, something like that. I don't think he fell over his own untucked shirt. So, great success. Well done, Bodge.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah, we're proud of you. Jeff says you can bet pre-election Tories will cut taxes after raising them to record levels to claim it's a win, just like the police numbers trick. Yeah, That's right. That's exactly what they're going to do. I said this already yesterday. I suspect that the reason that we have the highest taxes that anybody can remember is because they want to jack them up so high so they can reduce them by a large amount just before the next general election and say, look what we have done. Keith says, ask not what you can do for your king, but what your king can do for you. That's the question, and the answer is nothing. Also, well done to those who chose tactical voting. If it works for local elections, it will work for a general one. I don't think many people did tactical voting. I was reading something today about the Liberal Democrats who were sore upset.
Stop whining.
About lack of people who were actually, engaging in tactical voting. Seems to make sense to me. I mean, if your favourite party doesn't stand a chance in your locale, then vote for the one that is going to take out the party that you like the least. Does that make sense?
No.
Shall I say it again?
No.
Okay. All right. But keep that in mind. Zach says, Nick from Vancouver talks a pile of garbage. Now, you're going to have to think back to last night, to what he said. I mean, I can't remember, but you're probably right. He says, the coronation is being broadcast live across Canada on both coasts, with a special ceremony taking place in Ottawa. The Canadian High Commissioner explained it to the news last night. Okay, here comes the news from somebody who was here. Nick was complaining about the lack, not me, Nick from Vancouver, was complaining about the lack of coverage in the Canada. In the Canada. In Canada. Finally, you got there.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't think he was complaining about a lack of coverage. I think he was just reporting a lack of coverage. What an absolutely gripping procedure it was today, though, S.
Boring.
Oh, I just thought it was so dull. I mean, I sat there and I looked at it, but I can't say that I wanted to. After about 10 minutes, it just went on. And so much God. I mean, did there have to be that much God? A little bit too much God for me. Meanwhile, outside, of course, our freedoms were being ripped from us. Anti-monarchy activists blasted the police for arresting a number of protesters in the run-up to coronation of King Charles III in central London. And this is how it's reported in the right-wing press. The Republic is the group, right? The anti-monarchy group. Republic's megaphone-wielding chief executive, Graham Smith, was among those arrested, as police said that they had seized multiple lock-on devices and hundreds of posters. Posters?
Oh, no.
They're using paper as a weapon now. Nothing about this is funny. I mean, it would be funny if it was another country. Well, not even then, not really, because we're still talking about human beings. New legislation passed this week that would not look out of place in somewhere like China or Russia means protesters who have an object with the intention of using it to lock on or are liable to a fine, and those who block roads face 12 months in prison. And how do they know that you're going to use something to lock on? Well, they don't. So the police can now just make up a story about what you might do in the future and arrest you. And if you're thinking, gosh, this really sounds like a film I can barely recall. Yeah, exactly. 3 moist women in a salty pool of water and a machine that carves somebody's name out in a wooden ball. And then Tom Cruise comes in and, spoiler alert,
Warning.
it all ends badly. So we're now a country that arrests and prosecutes someone for having a padlock or a piece of string, or who hold hands, because that's apparently locking on as well. No holding hands. That's right out. It's against the law. And you can be arrested not after you've used it to attach yourself to something, but if the police think that you might do that in the future at some point, and they can arrest you. When we've actually got the thought police now. And if you think that doesn't affect you, then you're not as bright as you look. And you think, well, I vote Conservative, so that'll protect me. Well, There's now a crime of looking as though you might do something in the future. No one is safe from that. And the Republic's Group Director, Harry Stratton, who witnessed the arrest of 6 of his colleagues, denied that there were any megaphones or locking chains that were being carried, and no such thing was seized by the police, and they said they hadn't broken any rules, and these rules were laid out by the force in a series of meetings previous to the coronation. And one of the rules was not mentioning Prince Andrew. I'm not making that up. That was a red line for the police. You can't mention Prince Andrew and the sex claims against him, which he denies.
What?
Yeah, not allowed to mention it. I mean, the actual police in Great Bloomin' Britain are going to arrest you if you say something about Prince Andrew. Tell me again how the monarchy has no power. Oh, and he looked fantastic today. All dressed up in his finery, all tassels and swags like the curtain department at Harrods had thrown up on him. And Hazza, of course, out of Hazza and Sparkles, meanwhile, was forced to wear just a suit, because he had committed the crime of not living the life that had been written for him. Yeah, thanks a lot, Hazza. You've ruined everything. So he had to go in a suit, and he didn't get to wave off the balcony, and none of that. Didn't get sandwiches or anything. Had to bring his own thermos. Harry Stratton, out of the anti-monarchy group Republic, accused the police of intentionally picking them out, while another campaigner claimed straps holding their placards had been misconstrued as something that could be used for locking on. Anything can be misconstrued as something that could be used for locking on. I mean, anything at all. Like I said, holding hands would do it. You can get... You can get arrested in this country now for being in possession of hands.
Oh, no.
We're all in danger. Mr. Stratton, out of the group Republic, said, we had meetings with the police where they outlined what would and would not be accepted today. They told us any mention of Prince Andrew would mean arrests. Can you believe it? They said if anybody got in the way of the procession, they could be shot. Because the military, their explanation was as follows. If you get in the way of the procession, you could get shot because the military around the streets might be a bit touchy and not understand what was going on. Well, maybe if they're that trigger happy, they shouldn't be in charge of a gun in crowds. I mean, just a thought. If you hold up His Majesty's progress, you get shot in this country now. That's an interesting development. And the King's on board with that, is he? 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC. This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet @LBC. Text 84850.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
These are texts and tweets and such from last night. Peter texts, here we go again. The BBC's become the Royal Propaganda Corporation. I find it sickening, says Peter, seeing these boot-licking presenters turn into creeps and looking up to the royals. They're hoping one day they'll get a gong or a knighthood. Well, I think at this, around these occasions, it's their job to turn into creeps. Colette texts, can we take the time to talk about how funny Jonathan Gullis' face was in Stoke? Yes, we certainly can, Colette. It was an absolute picture. It was a picture by Edvard Munch. He was so upset. Hey, Jonathan.
Stop whining.
Yeah, well, he's probably contemplating having to do something else for a living. I know. That knocked the fire out of him, didn't it? Bab says, Chris Philp. Ugh, that guy. Chris Philp has been wheeled out once too often to defend the Tories, says Bab. On Newsnight, he became increasingly manic with wild staring eyes at the twists and turns he has to perform. I think he needs resting, says Bab. Chris Philp, I mean, that guy is just, it's just so... What's a nice way of saying slimy? I mean, you could use him to grease the wheels on a train. 0345 6060 973. Medway, Lulu.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Lulu.
Hello. Now, I phoned you last night, and I have to apologise because I feel that I was a little bit too refreshed last night.
Refreshed?
So,
Booze? Yes.
Yes, indeed. But I'm sober tonight, so...
How did that happen?
I know, very remiss of me. So, no, I said to your new glamorous assistant that something I've wanted to talk to you about for a long, long time. Now, you won't remember this because you don't listen to this show.
No, I don't, no.
No.
The host is an idiot.
Yeah, there was a guy who phoned up and he said, you know how you get people's names ever so slightly wrong, you know.
Who, me?
Like your math. Yeah.
I get their names wrong. Well, okay, well, let's carry on and see where it goes. Go on.
I'm talking about President Obakarama.
Oh, right. Obakarama, yeah. Yeah, you remember Obakarama, don't you?
Oh.
Yeah, back when the world made sense, yeah.
When the world made sense. So I had a friend once whose aged mother used to mispronounce words, and she used to say things like, oh, he's got that charisma he has. And we, laughed about that, but we actually took on the mispronunciation. So we would talk to people and say, oh, he's so charismatic. And people would look at you and say, you're mad, you know?
They want to correct you, but they're too polite. Yeah.
Exactly. So this chap who messaged you ages ago, and he said, Nick, you know, the trouble is, I've been listening to you for so long, and I was in a meeting at work the other day with all my work colleagues, and I started talking about Obakarama. And all my colleagues looked at me and said, what is that? And I just love that. I just think it's delightful. But, you know, that's what you do.
Well, I have that effect on people, and I would like to apologise.
I am very sorry that I screwed up. Totally I mean, I am so sorry. You just don't know how sorry I am. I'm sorry.
Very apologetic about that, Lulu. All right. Okay. Cheers, my dear.
It's great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, darling.
Ta-ta. 0345 6060 973. Joe says the last coronation was the first time most people saw television. If you think of that, if you think of when you first saw TV, you'd watch any old thing. Well, I can remember getting a colour TV set for the first time. Oh, what a day that was. Colour television. It was a sensation. Of course, kids have got no idea what we're talking about. They don't even know what a television is these days. Get your face out your phones, kids. There's probably a TV in your house somewhere. Yeah, the first time I saw colour television, I think it arrived in the afternoon, and we put it on. Of course, in those days, it was only like 2 channels, maybe 3 tops, and there was nothing on during the day, which is how it should be these days. I mean, I maintain that television should not come on during the day. What do you need television during the day for? They're just wasting their money. All right, give ITV, free rein, and maybe some other commercial channels that just want to put rubbish on during the day just to hoover up some bored people that would probably be better served doing something more constructive with their lives. But what's the BBC doing, putting that tripe on during the day? I mean, what a waste of money, apart from anything else. But I do recall turning it on in the afternoon, and the only thing on, literally the only programme on when our colour TV arrived was cricket.
Boring.
Which was colourful, right enough, being as it was green. But apart from that, God, it was so disappointing, because you just wanted to watch anything. But I couldn't watch that. Let's have Rochester. Eddie.
Hello.
Eddie.
Yes, I'm remembering the time of Thatcher when there was a big miners' strike, and the police were turning people back and arresting them because they thought they might be going to join the picket line.
Right.
So I'm afraid, this isn't quite a new thing. The police have been doing this before. Well, and in London, well, we all know how bad the police are in London. It's official now.
It's pretty awful, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they say they wind them up and then they go whacking people and grabbing hold of them and arresting them. They can't stop until it's wound down at their back.
Well, yeah, I think that when the police used to act in that way, they didn't necessarily have the ability to carry through to putting people in prison. That the courts might have something to say about it. So this caring, sharing government have removed all doubt about that. If they think that you are considering doing something, it's jail time for you, sunshine.
Yeah.
Nothing alarming about that, Eddie. Don't worry about a thing. All right, thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Well, they used to arrest people for driving into a field with the intention of dancing to repetitive beats. And with great success. Stamp that out right now. Joe says, no, read that. Jan says, Nick, it's so funny in Liverpool. Saturday means Eurovision and no one has remembered the royal wedding or whatever it is. It's great. Well, there was some... There was people expressing an opinion in a forceful way at a football match. They said in great numbers when this struck up. Yeah, didn't like it at all. And I mean, just taking the tune itself, I can understand their displeasure at this. I've heard better tunes. And so have you, by the way. 0345 6060 973. Merthyr Tydfil. Jeff.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Jeff.
How are you doing, fella?
Good, thanks.
Well said, well said. Can I just say to you, Nick, that what you said needs to be said. And not enough people are saying it.
Well, what is it that you're talking about?
Arrested on suspicion.
Oh, right.
That's basically what we're talking about. No crime committed, but arrested because they think you're going to do something.
Yeah.
That's been with us right the way back as far as I can remember. There was a campaign, they were burning cottages in empty cottages in Wales.
I remember that,
in the 90s. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
There was a massive arrest right across Wales, and they were all held on the Anti-Terrorism Act. Not one of them was charged for 9 days. Can you imagine? No solicitor, just being interrogated for 9 days. I remember it, and it was arrested on suspicion. This has been happening in Northern Ireland. It's been happening all the time.
They called it sus, didn't they? The sus laws.
Yeah, it is totally against natural justice. And what you said is come to London. And this is what's the big problem.
Well, I wonder what the difference is between what we've got now, what has just become law, and what we used to have then. Because you're quite right. I remember the sus laws. Yeah, it was going equipped to... and by equipped, it could be anything. It's like the law that's just gone does mean apparently that locking on can include holding hands. So if you go anywhere in possession of your hands, if you forget to leave your hands at home when you go out, then you can be arrested by the law.
Hang on, Nick. If you shout in a demonstration,
you don't have to shout.
Be arrested.
You don't have to shout, Jeff. You can whisper it.
Yeah. It's a travesty of justice. And what you're saying needs to be said by a lot of people. And I admire you for it.
No, hang on a minute. That implies that I'm being brave. I'm not being brave, am I? All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. Uh-oh. 0345 6060 973. Paul emails, don't people have short memories? It wasn't long ago people were living on furlough with the Tories subsidising the wages of millions. We're in strange times. No, Paul, the Tories were not subsidising the wages of millions. The taxpayer was. Oh, my God, how little we have learned. You think they were doing us a favour? Are you kidding me? People were living on furlough and the Tories were subsidising the wages of millions. Can you believe that? You're an idiot, Paul, and I mean that in a helpful and constructive way. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 10:30, the news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio, making a picture again.
It's a radio show, dear. Isabel says, I deliberately gave the voting administrators my guide dog volunteer ID card, which has a large paw print next to my photo. It was accepted very happily, however. They gave me my ballot paper, but they gave my ballot paper to my husband. What a shower, says Isabel. Are women allowed to vote? Somebody should check on that. Do you need male supervision? Probably do. Joe says, the last coronation... No, read that. Jan says, this Liverpool Saturday means Eurovision thing. It wasn't... It's not tonight, is it? Eurovision? Is it Eurovision tonight?
I'll put that for you now.
Huh? What?
Let me just check.
He's going to check. How can you not know that? Major event like Eurovision. Doesn't know. You believe that? Eurovision. It can't be tonight because they wouldn't mix and match to enormous events. There's Chasness getting his sparkly hat and Eurovision all at the same time. That would be just too much entertainment, yes?
No.
Maybe it's next week. Can you stand the excitement? Luton. Hello, Victor.
Hello.
Victor.
Oh?
You keep saying "oh" unless you're saying "hello" and your phone is cutting the first part of the word out. So try one more time.
Sorry, normally they give you a warning. I didn't realise I was going straight on. But,
Victor,
anyway.
I'll put you on hold and we'll give you a warning.
Warning, warning.
And I'll come to you in a moment. Consider that your warning. Woolwich, hello, Richard.
Sorry, that was funny. Hi. I want to talk about the Back to the Future and Back to the Past.
Back to the Future. Are you talking about the theatrical production in London's fashionable West End? Isn't it great?
Based on your recommendation,
Yeah.
I finally got around to go to see it, and I was sitting there at the beginning, and I was thinking, "Oh God, what is this? What have I got myself into?"
Right.
Singing Marty and all the rest of it, and then when the whole car thing kicked in, and from then on, it was just you're absolutely right. Brilliant production.
It really is just such a fantastic show because and the reason that I mentioned it is because the prices of tickets in London's West End have just gone through the roof. I mean, they're absolutely stratospheric, and you pay to go and see a show, and you really are laying out the kind of money that you would ordinarily think about paying on a holiday. I mean, it really is up at that level. And most of the time, most of the shows that I see are just so disappointing. I mean, even ones that get 5-star reviews and people are saying, oh, this is the most fantastic thing. I mean, I could reel off a list of them right now that are still playing in London's West End and are charging, up to 250 quid a ticket. But I won't. But the one show that I think I pretty much guarantee that anybody is going to like, I mean, you'd have to be pretty hard-hearted not to like Back to the Future, and I mentioned it because it's the sort of thing you think, well, that can't possibly be good. Back to the Future, the musical, come on, that just sounds desperate, but it's so enjoyable, it really is.
Yeah, I mean the good thing is, of course, that it's kind of new music they've written for it, so. Yeah. People can't sing along, which I think is a plus.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But Nick, what I really, if I may, very quickly, it's the Back to the Past, which is the coronation today, and the things that stood out for me was this. It goes back to this thing, and I know you talk about it as well a lot, which is these uniforms and these medals and the sort of a ceremony. Like when you kind of step away from the silken voices and the commentary on it, and you just kind of look at it as a spectacle, it is completely absurd.
Yes, I saw it. I don't know who it was, but he must have been about 14 years old. He had so many medals on, he could barely stand up. What were they for? Like cycling proficiency tests they're giving medals for now?
That's Edward's son. That is the Duke of Edinburgh's son. I
Right.
saw the same thing. He's about 13. I mean, what, trampolining? Why has he got those medals?
I don't know. They just spend all day thinking up new awards to give to members of their own family.
Exactly. And the really interesting backstory today that was in the Mirror was that the Princess Anne is apparently very upset behind the scenes that Camilla is now is no longer queen consort, but the queen. And you kind of realise that's all they got, isn't it? It's just a status thing. It's like they give their life to this thing, and now suddenly Camilla has jumped rank on Anne, and the young son's wearing medals, and Prince Andrew's downgraded, and it's this kind of whole horrible, horrific status that's being played out before our eyes.
One of the most it did actually make me laugh out loud was the bit where Charles was given a sword which looked like it had been embellished with all of the jewels that have ever been dug out of the ground on planet Earth. It was the most sparkly thing I've ever seen in my life. And the Justin Welby gave him this sword, and he said something of the order of, with this sword, you want to fight for a more equitable distribution of wealth, or something like that. That made me guffaw.
Exactly, and then passing it on to the air hostess to kind of hold it for the next hour. The spectacle was just
air hostess. Somebody tweeted an image of the Poundland logo, and it's the exact same thing. Penny Mordaunt was advertising Poundland.
Exactly. So well, I put my yellow T-shirt away now. It's all okay now. But
okay.
I know.
All right.
Those are my views on it.
Okay, well, make sure you're standing up when you're thinking about it. All right, Richard? Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. And they shied away from I pledge my life and all my best things to you, your fabulous majesty. Those words that they asked us to think about saying. And then they didn't do it. I think Welby said something like, just think nice things over the next couple of seconds. Something like that. I think the most impressive part for me was not all that. There was just way too much God. I mean, it's just all of that God stuff. It's just painful. But the bit where they were marching and they had to go from about 12 across to 6 across to squeeze through the gates. Did you see that? I mean, I think the cameras missed almost every single time they did it. But they just out of the bottom of the screen, they caught one, seemingly by accident. And, God, it was like clockwork. It was actually quite an astonishing thing to see. Because they were marching forwards, and then they went 90 degrees, and then they marched towards each other until 12 abreast became 6 abreast, and then they carried on going in the direction that they had been previously. That was good. The rest of it, I don't know. It's a little bit. Is it an arrestable offence? An arrestable offence to say it was a little bit dull?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so just disregard any comments I make in this regard. Terrible sentence. That's probably an arrestable offence as well. Oldbury, hello, Rangers.
Hiya, mate, you right?
Yes, good, thanks. Have you been frying tonight?
Oh, it's been terrible tonight, mate. Absolutely terrible.
Well, don't feel bad because the centre of London is deserted. I mean, people say that this ceremony and all is going to be fantastic for tourism, and it's going to be great for for restaurants and cafes and things. Normally, on a Friday and Saturday night, you walk up through London's West End, and loads of restaurants have got outside spaces, and they're covered and they're heated and so on, and they're usually absolutely rammed. There's no one there tonight. There's no one out.
Funnily enough, lunchtime we thought it was going to be really quiet, right? But it was okay lunchtime, so not a lot of people watching the hat ceremony, to be honest with you.
Huh.
And you know what? You're messing around with the establishment. You know, when you mess around with him, you know what happens, don't you?
Yeah.
the thought police, everybody, you'll be arrested. I want to talk about a few little subjects. Did Donny come round hoping for a cancellation and see if he can get into Westminster Abbey? He was.
It would have been so great if I had been there. It was a terrible event. Everyone says so.
He had that. Did you see when he had the beanie on at his golf course?
He was wearing a beanie.
Yeah, he was, and he was like the local tramp that was walking around the golf course.
A beanie? Donald Trump wore a beanie. I'm going to have to look that up.
Have a look it up. Yeah, honestly, and he had a big fat coat on. It was hilarious. It was like Benny from Crossroads, right? Okay, and then the other one.
It wasn't a MAGA hat, was it? It wasn't a MAGA hat beanie.
I don't know what it was. He's had a pom-pom on as well.
Because
you get your glamorous presenter to show you a picture.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there it is. That's right. He does look like Benny from Crossroads.
I couldn't believe he went off in that.
It's a bright blue beanie, which, of course, clashes with the orange of his skin. Yeah, you need a stylist to sort that out for you, Donny.
Yeah, and then, when we was kids, we used to have a phrase, help the police, beat yourself up, right? Okay? And a lot of my friends, there's a suburb of Birmingham called Handsworth, and it's always been a bit rough. Yeah, you know what, that's what the kids used to say there. And the other one, when I was watching the coronation thing, on my computer, there was a bloke in the audience, right? And I'll tell you what, he was like same colour skin as me, brown, and he had a white goatee. And he was standing there with his hands in his pocket, right, and kicking his feet about. You have a look, it was when Charlie Boy was just walking in, and he was on his right-hand side. And the other people, and I thought... It
wasn't like part of the procession. It wasn't like dancing or, dancing the king in.
He was in the audience. And then I seen my mate, I said, did you see... He says, yeah, did you see that Asian bloke? He said, with his hands in his pockets, yeah? Right. And he was shuffling his feet. As if, oh, God, I don't want to be here. Right. What am I doing here?
Well, that's probably well, he may have just had itchy feet.
No, yeah, but when you go to a place like this, right, you'd be a bit nervous, wouldn't you? You'd make sure that the cameras are on you, you don't pick your nose, you don't pass wind or anything like that.
Anything like that, yeah.
Yeah, so he was just so funny. And, when I asked my mate, he pointed it out straight away. I didn't even have to say to him. I said, did you see? He says, oh, yeah, the Asian man with his hands in his pockets, right? So that was that. Right. And I think, looking at, say King Charles III in an Irish accent, will you, please, for me?
Yeah, that's what I'll do, Rajit. I'll do that straight away. No. This is not a request, Joe. Do I sound like Anne-Marie Minhall to you? Thanks a lot, Ranjit. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Right, so what are we doing?
We are looking at a picture of Donald Trump. This is the headline from the 1st of May. I didn't see this picture. Trump ditches his MAGA cap for a ski hat. Is that what it is? To inspect his new Scottish golf course. And there's a picture of him looking like, not so much a skier, more like a farmer. He's wearing a beanie with it's like a woolen hat with a bobble on the top. It's a bobble hat. You look like a bobble-hatted wearing chump, Donny.
Don't be rude.
Not you at all. Looks like a farmer. Terrible. And the information about the Eurovision is that it starts on Tuesday and finishes on Saturday. 5 days? What are they doing in... How's it lasting 5 days? What are they doing for 5 days?
Semi-final and then final.
Semi-final. Right. Yeah, it's right. So you can progress by a knockout or a submission. Right. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to not watching it. Ashford, Milan.
Hi, Nick.
Milan.
Hi. Do you know what? I kept coming in and out of the TV watching the coronation, but...
What, in and out of consciousnly, you mean?
Not only because of the music, because the music was... I thought Star Wars was on TV because of the music was like how it was in Star Wars. I kept coming in and going, I can watch Star Wars. And
well, Penny Mordaunt was also holding that sword like it was a lightsaber.
Yeah, I didn't know it was Penny Mordaunt. I thought with her shoulder pads, she must be working out or something.
Yes, I think she'd nicked Darth Vader's cape. Yeah.
No, that's the only reason I came in. But then I sort of pondered, and I should know this from discussions with the Queen, but what on earth would King Charles actually do? Because he's got nothing. He hasn't got to worry about gas, electricity, and rent, and water. He doesn't have to worry about food. He doesn't have to worry about He's got the world's best physicians at his side and nutritionists. All he has to do is walk around places, cut a ribbon, and say how this charity is close to his heart, and then goes home and watches
this charity. Insert name of charity here is close to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unless I missed something, that's pretty much his day, isn't it? I mean, unless I can't think of any.
I don't think that there is anything else to it. You wake up whenever you like, and breakfast on the world's finest comestibles, and you have 12 people help you dress, and then you get taken to somewhere where commoners bow and scrape before you, and the whole thing smells of paint and bleach because the entire building has been cleaned to within an inch of its life, and people provide you with the finest food and drink that anybody has ever seen, and it all looks completely normal to you because it's like that wherever you go.
Yeah, well, my friend sent me a picture today, like, this is costing at least 50 million, but we don't have enough money to fix potholes in the road. So, so they were putting sand in it, and that describes some of the lunacy of this as well. But it's really... I just remembered, while I'm watching it, we're discussing that 10 years ago, we were at the Royal Garden Party.
Oh, yeah.
Which was an interesting experience. I mean, it was a real privilege to be there. Although a couple of complaints. Is that going to be controversial?
Well, what's the food like before you get to the complaints? Maybe this is the complaint.
Well, that's one of the complaints. The vegetarian option was absolutely dreadful. It was like a soggy cucumber sandwich. And even though it's free, but I mean...
Free? There's nothing free about it. You've paid for it already, Milan. We all have.
Yes, that's true. But I thought, it could be a bit better. I mean, we could have gone to the local shop and got a better catering.
Could have gone to Pret.
Yeah, and then...
that's a good tip, by the way. If you ever get invited to one of those royal garden parties, bring your own food. I'm sure they'd love that.
Yeah, I'll bring my own takeaway. But maybe my expectations were a bit too elevated about 10 years ago because we thought, we'll be mingling with all the royals. But so we stood there, and then the Queen and Prince Charles came, and they came down the steps, and they walked past everyone, and they went into their cordoned area. And I thought,
well, like a VIP, like a beyond the rope, the VIP area at a club.
Yeah, it's like if you it's like if you invited me to your house, and then I came in and I was ushered to the living room, and then you came down and you went straight past me and went into the conservatory.
Right. And into the conservatory, out the back, and into someone else's house. Yeah.
Yeah, and we wouldn't communicate the whole time, and then they'll be like, "What was the point in inviting me?" It was.
So did you steal anything, like a teaspoon or a cup or something like? Huh?
I didn't. I said hello to King Charles. Well, it was Prince Charles, wasn't it? But then that was for a few seconds. He just smiled and went hello, and then that was it. I was kind of ushered away.
I mean, I suppose it's if you like meeting strangers and engaging in chit chat, then it's the world's best job. But if you don't like that, then it's pretty awful, I would imagine, because that's what you have to do every bloomin' day.
Yeah, and you must get bored after a while. You think, you know what, I'm not going to see you ever again. Why on earth am I going to have a chat with you? Right. I mean, it's just... This is what they've got to do, isn't it? They've got to put a smile on, a pose for the camera, and then it's what Harry thinks, you know what, forget this, I'd rather do something else.
Yeah,
and then,
something more meaningful with my life. Yeah, exactly.
You see any good films?
I saw The Spy Who Loved Me by the Bond film with Roger Moore. It was on, and I thought, I'll look up online to see what the best Roger Moore film is. And they said that it was The Spy Who Loved Me. Worst film ever. I mean, it's just so bad. I can't believe that anybody would have watched another James Bond film after it. That it didn't kill the franchise.
Not for me. Probably I think View to Kill I really liked. That was pretty good.
Oh, there were some decent Bond films, but that just wasn't one of them. The best Roger Moore Bond film has to be Live and Let Die. But no one said that. Look at the opinions of people online. I mean, there's so many people that do these best of lists of films and so on. And I cross-referenced 3 of them, and they all said The Spy Who Loved Me was Roger Moore's best film. Has to be one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. It was just embarrassingly bad. So no is the answer to that question. No, I have not. Looking forward to the new Mission Impossible, though. Can't wait till that comes out.
I saw a really good film in the cinema for the first time in a while last week. Very good film, and I was really surprised. And when you come out of seeing a film, you think, wow, that was amazing, and you start Googling it, and then you think of researching the film. I don't think it's going to be your kind of film before I announce the title of it, so you brace for it. It's based on true events. It's called The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, it's a no from me.
Okay, never mind.
Thanks for the suggestion. All right. Cheers, Milan. 0345 6060 973. Hey, did I ever get back to that guy who was surprised at being... I don't think I ever did I? Well, he's going to have to wait a little bit longer because I've got the news. But put him on next. What's that? Did you hear that? That was weird. There's a ghost in that. Get Ardeen Taylor on the phone right now. I mean it. There's a ghost in the house. Jess, I've got another station bleeding through in here. Or something like that. James emails, if I spoon some oil onto my head, will that make me a king, or do I have to get someone else to do it? Yeah, I think that there's a thing. Of course, we weren't allowed to see that part. He got oiled. You believe that? Jess says, the problem with this coronation thing is that Charles is so old. It's not like the dawn of a new age. It's the wheezing last gasps of the old one. And I think we've all had enough of this one already. It's only just begun, Jess. And Ahmed said, a news reporter asked the coronation watcher on the streets of London how they felt, to which they responded, it was the most amazing, spine-tingling moment. Could you describe how you felt today after watching every moment of the wall-to-wall coverage? Well, my spine wasn't tingling, if that's what you're asking me. That didn't happen. My bottom went numb, but no tingling of the spine. No. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Oh, I want to talk about when Wills and Whatsit met that bloke on TikTok. Because that was, of all the weird things that happened this week, that was about the tip-toppermost. So don't let me forget. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Oh, hello there. Very nice to meet you.
Hot air. H-O-T-A-I-R.
Jan says, did you see Bodger arriving at Westminster Abbey? He looked like a right mess. Yes, you did, Bodge.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Jan says his shirt collar was all over the place. He looked like he could have done with a good ironing. What an absolute disgrace. Well, I've dealt with this already on this show so far, and it is his image, and nothing will sway him from presenting himself in that manner, because that's like his logo. It's his thing. It's like Samson's hair. It's where he gets his power from. It disarms people. They think, oh, he's a lovable little rogue. Yeah, but he ain't. That's not him at all. He presents himself as
the great big greedy nincompoop.
But that ain't who he is. Luton, hello, Victor. This is your 2-second warning.
Warning.
You're on.
Hello, I'm ready. Thank you.
Go on.
I just want, because I'm not a monarchist, but I find that a lot of my friends who are Republicans, not American Republicans, anti-monarchists, they're a little bit hypocritical, and then they also have some sloppy arguments. So, yes, monarchy entrenches literary inequality, but republicanism begins at home. So are you looking, for instance, to help your children with a leg up on the housing ladder and hoping to pass on a nest egg after you die and have low inheritance tax? Then you're perpetuating the same hereditary inequality that as the monarchy that they supposedly dislike.
Yeah.
Also,
there's truth in that.
Another question is whether meritocratic quality, the sort of alternative to hereditary inequality, is that actually any better? Because in a way, it's just as unequal as the hereditary system, but it uses dice. So luck moves from who your parents are to what gifts of intellect and ambition you were born with. So society based on inherited wealth, that allows somebody like Prince Andrew, who isn't very bright or gifted, to have a shot at a comfortable life.
Yeah.
In a purely meritocratic society, there'll also be inequality, but it's harder to argue against because it's sort of seen as just desserts for someone's effort and intellect and skills.
Well, at least with in a meritocracy, the people who make the fortune in the first place had some hand in doing it. I mean, they may have stolen it, of course. They may have just nicked it from someone else, or they may have created a fortune from scratch. But at least they had some hand in creating that fortune that they're going to pass down. Whereas in a hereditary system like we're talking about, then it's essentially an invisible space wizard poofed your superiority and your fortune out of thin air and just gave it to you.
Well, no, he's got the unearned privileges. He's a descendant from someone who actually risked his life and limb to do some Saxon slashing 1,000 years ago.
Well, maybe, but that's not where the fortune came from. The fortune of a monarchy came, if you just go back far enough, they just essentially stole the land. They said, right, all of this is mine, and all of you people have to leave now, or I'll kill you.
I mean, the question about whether there should be a monarch and how wealthy he should be is sort of... But then also the other thing is monarchists don't see the king or queen as being better than they are.
Oh, they just sort
of accidentally achieve their status. Just like, do you know, like the head is no better than the stomach or the neck on which it sits. So it's just an accident. So you sort of role play.
Well, where does all the curtsying and the bowing and the Your Majesty come from if they don't consider them better? Of course they do. I mean, that's the whole the whole nature of
role play.
Theatre and role play. No, it isn't, because no, it isn't. It's not theatre and role play because
some people will take it too seriously.
I think we all take it too seriously. I mean, when you don't take it seriously, then the whole edifice of it just evaporates. You have to take it seriously, otherwise it doesn't mean anything.
It has a sort of, I guess it has a sort of historical. It means something if you buy into the whole hereditary, historical sort of.
It's the only way in which it means something. I mean, that's the it of it.
But, I mean, the problem, I think, often is the criticism from people sort of applying a meritocratic time over something which
I think you're being very extremist, though. I mean, you're being quite extremist. You're suggesting that if people benefit in any way from the wealth that their parents created, or they have friends and they get a leg up from, by being introduced to the right people and so on, then there should be no then meritocracy is dead. But I think you can have levels of it. You can either be given
if you are
85
a Republican and
million
you still want to give your little Finbar a leg up on the housing ladder, then your republicanism is laughable. It's
I disagree. You're being I totally disagree with you, Victor. You're being too extreme. It's not one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game. You can just be a human being and want the best for those you know and those in your family without, signing up to this bizarre thing that we've got going here where half of the seabed becomes yours because of an accident of birth. I mean, you can hold both thoughts that a monarchy is not an equitable and justifiable way to run a country while also doing favours for your friends. You can hold both of those thoughts at the same time. But anyway, good talk. Thanks a lot. 0345 6060 973. Tom says, I'm so proud of the anti-monarchy protesters at the coronation today. No one should be arrested for a peaceful protest in a democracy. Well, it's sort of like a democracy, this country, but not really, and less so with every passing day. I mean, Republic is the organisation that had some of their people arrested. And the leader said, we believe we had made our intentions clear to have a peaceful protest and we didn't bring any megaphones or any other equipment. They said these arrests seem like the work of a police state. It's not acceptable. We're only saying that we don't believe in the monarchy and we're doing it peacefully. How can they arrest 6 people who are just on the way to a peaceful protest, they said? Which is a good question. And the answer is they can do it because Boris Johnson started the process of killing off free speech in this country, and it was enthusiastically taken up by the Blunder Trust.
Absolutely.
And little slippery fishy tweaked it to be as restrictive as possible. I think maybe somebody needs to take out those little suits of his, because they may be so tight as to be restricting the blood flow to his brain. Someone should tell him it doesn't matter how much money you got, you can't just take away the rights of the people, especially if the people didn't vote for you. I mean, he needs to get a grip because he's coming across like a petulant little dictator.
I'm gripping it.
I believe you. Protester Simon Hill was previously arrested for shouting who elected him during a proclamation ceremony for the king, which is a fair question, to which the answer is no one. That's the nature of the pretend democracy that we have in this country. And it's been running fairly okay up to now. But expecting the government to do the right thing can lead to disappointment when you run into wannabe autocrats like Kim Il-Sunak and Mr. Blobby.
Yeah. Wait.
Then you have a problem. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Colchester. Hello, Judy.
Hello.
Judy.
Yes, 'tis Judy. You usually say Judy.
Judy.
Right. Well, I've been laying here listening to your programme for about probably nearly an hour now, and, I think, am I in a parallel universe here? Because I watched the coronation today. I got myself sorted and I sat down and watched it, me and my little dog.
Aww.
And it was, this is for me. This is how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. It was wonderful. It was all that is good about this country.
There was a lot of God, though, don't you think?
Well, there's always a lot of God. You either believe in God or you don't. I don't.
But where was the bit for people who don't believe in God? Because it was just one God thing after the next.
Well, if you don't believe in God and you don't want to listen to it, you didn't have to.
No, but he's supposed to be all of our ruler. He's supposed to be the king for all of us, not just those who believe in the invisible space wizard.
But that, oh dear, it was wonderful. Let's get back to what I was saying. It was the military, the precision.
Oh yeah, that was very good.
The discipline, the fact
marching in the rain. It can't be easy. We're in all that clobber.
All the horses. It brought a lump to my throat. I was very proud. It was spine tingling, and the service itself.
Spine tingling? Really?
Yes, it was.
At which point did your spine tingle?
All the way through, and I'm not alone in that because I've got lots of friends who felt the same.
Sitting in an electric chair, were you, Judy?
Not today.
Right.
That service was specifically done whereby it combined all faiths.
Yeah, but except for the majority, which is no faith.
Look, I have no faith. I can't go through my life wondering wherever I go that someone might be of not my faith. I'll be talking about faith. I take people as I find them, and that is just part of life. And I felt proud, and I think, and also to say, if that they don't do anything, and calling Charles old. Well, if he's old,
he is old.
Well, then I'm old then, Nick, because I'm not far much younger than him, but I don't just sit about not doing anything. The elder generation now do a lot.
Well, I'm not suggesting that old people don't do anything, but there's only a certain amount of time you get on the conveyor belt of life before you fall off the end of it.
Well, exactly. So you have to lead it to the full. But what I will say is that if the royals do a lot of good, we don't hear about it every day.
Oh,
but
come on! Yes, we do. Every time they step out the house, the coverage is all over the newspapers of them glad handing some troll.
One little scenario, Nick. If, for instance, you are somebody who happens to have a child with a very rare disease or something like that, if they get a visit for one of the royals, it does them so much good. The excitement, the fact that they've got a...
You aren't suggesting that they cure disease.
That is not what I'm suggesting, and you know that.
Well, I don't know. Well, what good does it do?
What good is it? Well, you ask next time somebody who has actually had that happen. It might be a hospice somewhere.
Right, well, I bet if they had a visit from Shania Twain that they would have lifted the roof off the place.
It may well do. It's
the sparkle of fame.
Don't. If it hadn't have been for Diana, Diana was the one that covered the subject of AIDS when it came out. She did it with leprosy as well. She did all that.
Right.
But, don't dismiss the royals as doing nothing, because they do a lot. But a lot of it isn't what we see. It might not suit you. It might not suit everybody, but it does for lots of people. And I'm immensely proud of our country. There's a lot of things in this country we don't get right, and we're all fed up with that. But one thing's for sure, when it comes for displays and precision and the discipline of our services, then we get that right. And that today was absolutely exemplary, and it brought a lot of pleasure to a lot of people, including lots of people that had travelled far and wide to this country specifically to see it. I've listened to all the comments, which I haven't found very pleasant and to a certain extent disrespectful. I'm just putting my side of it. And that's the way I feel. And I'm not alone in that. I am proud today of my country, and I don't often get the opportunity to say that. But today was what we British do best.
Parades. Okay.
It was more than a parade, wasn't it? It was more than that. It was all the strength of our military.
But we don't have a strong military. Our military is crying out for more numbers. We don't have the numbers. If Vladimir Putin decided to invade, we'd get knocked over in an instant. It seems a bit weird that all of those troops were spending all of that time. I mean, to good effect. It was a good show, the marching and so on. But if our army is at its lowest ebb, then they did spend an extraordinarily large amount of time in marching. for what is essentially a TV show.
Well,
but
I'm sure.
I get what you're saying, Judy. It was a good program. Yeah, I agree with you. The actual ceremony itself, I found really, really dull, and there's way too much religion. But the marching, big fan, yeah. All right, thanks, Judy. 0345 6060 973. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC. Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Yeah! Dude!
Daryl says, here you go again, Nick, moaning that the teachers aren't being offered a decent pay rise. But be fair, clearly the government can't afford it. I mean, they've just had to fork out hundreds of millions of pounds for a coronation. Ellie says, I didn't think that the hat in the Abbey was that sparkly. There was more singing than blinging. The one on the balcony was much more glittery. I thought it was the same one. He didn't swap hats, did he? And Rona says, hearing Zaporizhia in the news again just gave me goosebumps. Last year, I remember you speaking to somebody from there just before it was shelled. Yeah, well, I remember that vividly myself. That was one of the most painful programs I've ever done. Just after 10, I was speaking to somebody who was calling us from Zaporizhia, and he was saying, well, he could hear, shells landing in the distance, but it wasn't anywhere near where he was living, just down the road from the nuclear power plant. And then by the end of the show, I was reporting that the Russians had started shelling that very same nuclear power plant. And for the first time in my entire life, I was rendered speechless on the radio. I just couldn't say anything. Having had a nice chat with such a nice bloke who was living in Zaporizhia, and then hearing the news that the nuclear power station just down the road from where he was living was getting shelled by morons. Well, it was just... I came out of that just completely wrung out. Now, I know that sometimes I do leave silences on the air, but the silence I left that night just went on forever, and I had to say something because otherwise the emergency tape would have kicked in. Yeah, that was a painful night. But it's in the news again. I mean, it rather puts everything that we're talking about into perspective, doesn't it? If that blows up, then you can kiss goodbye to all of it. 0345 6060 973. I mean, never mind about goosebumps. If those goosebumps will be permanent. Break out all over. Maidenhead. Hello, Gary. Oh, Gary?
Oh,
yes, Gary.
Yeah, Nick. Oh, hello, Nick. Yeah, we've spoke before.
Oh, yes.
I was just saying to your producer, the new chap, that yourself and me and other people, we might have to be careful. Do you remember that film in the Defence of the Realm when the journalists found out what was really going on in the establishment?
No, who was in that?
Oh, I can't. I know the actors, but I can't put names to it. But
right.
It was 1985, something like that. And this journalist, he went up against the authorities, and in the end. But I said to your producer he was gonna watch it tonight, so I wouldn't tell him what happened in the end. But
yeah, no spoiler alert.
Yeah, so I think, but the reason I mention that is we have spoken before that I'm the chap that lives in the car.
Oh,
Ed.
Right.
I had the KGB police tonight because I normally go to Windsor.
Yeah.
Mate, I normally go to Windsor on a Sunday.
Mm.
You can get a hot meal at a particular church.
Right.
And they've warned me off. They've told me that, because there's a particular car park, and I've actually moved away from there tonight, down near the Thames, near Maidenhead.
Yeah.
And this black BMW pulls up, and, you have to be a bit careful when you're at my age,
mm-hmm.
and one copper was plain clothes, the other one had a uniform on, and after they asked me a couple of things, and then the one that had the uniform, oh yeah, I've heard about, I've heard about this chap, and then the other one with it goes, so what are you up to tomorrow then? I goes, well, I normally go over to Maidenhead. I normally go over to Windsor to get me hot meal.
Yeah.
says, no, you don't want to do that tomorrow. I go, what's that then? And the other one in the uniform, I mean, I'll probably disappear tonight if the coppers are with me. He goes, well, there's going to be cars everywhere outside Windsor. And, single blokes in cars may get pulled up.
Right.
I said, why? Just because you're single? And he goes, well, not just that, but groups, but, you know, especially if somebody pulls up and you've got super glue in the car and stuff. I said, right. And I said to the one, I could tell the one that didn't have the uniform on, he was acting more aggressive.
Mm.
And I said to him, do you actually work for the KGB now then?
That was probably a big mistake there, Gary.
Well, and this is what I'm saying. And he goes, listen, you want to go along to the station for sleeping in the car? I goes, well, isn't it legal to sleep in the car? He goes, we'll have to check that. I said, listen.
Well, maybe they actually serve a decent meal at the Nick. Possible.
Oh, I've had a few, like that.
No good. Right.
But so they're basically saying, stay away from Windsor. And if you're a single bloke or you're there'd be patrols outside the area stopping people just because they don't look right.
Yeah.
And then if you particularly got a tube of super glue,
then you're in big trouble. Huge. Yeah. All right. Well, keep us posted, Gary. Thanks for that. Alarming. Yeah, I talked about Simon Hill, who was previously arrested for shouting "Who elected him" during the proclamation ceremony for the King. Well, he had charges against him of using threatening or abusive words, just for saying "Who elected him." That was the charge: using threatening or abusive words, or disorderly behaviour likely to cause harassment, alarm, or distress. Now, those charges were dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service, but that was then. This was during the proclamation ceremony. This is history, this is. But I suspect that when Cruella hears about it, she'll be whining about lefty activist Crown Prosecution Services. He said, I am nervous but determined to keep on protesting peacefully against the monarchy and arbitrary policing. And you know what? We should all be nervous about protesting peacefully. Why should we be? I mean, we're not living in Russia. But now the authorities have awarded themselves this new Public Order Act, and they're going to use it. And they didn't pass the bill to protect the king. They passed it to protect the regime, just like they passed the voter ID law to protect the regime from the forces of democracy as much as they can. And if you're not frightened by any of this, wake up. It's later than you think. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Hey, by the way, I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin in which we try to solve people's problems while laughing our faces off. Now, they come out on Monday. It's about an hour. Comes out every week. There must be 150 of them up there at the moment. And it's on Global Player. If you haven't got Global Player, you can get it from globalplayer.com or your app store. Global Player, it's got the podcast that I do, 3 in all. If you just do an internet search on my name, Nick Abbott Podcast, then all 3 will come up as though by magic. But the one I'm talking about, and I think you will like it, it is a laugh. It's What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol. It's 11:30 on LBC, the news headlines with our reporter Tim Daly.
Leading Britain's conversation, Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
0345 6060 973. Rick says, I've been in Glasgow since Friday and I have to say that your weather forecast is rubbish. What? He says, I packed thermals and an umbrella and waterproofs on your comprehensive forecast and not one drop of rain.
What?
In Glasgow? He says, not even when I took a day trip to the Highlands. Pfft, rubbish. Checking while you wait. Aha! Not raining at the moment in Glasgow, but it will be raining tomorrow. Start raining in early afternoon and continue all day long and all night, and then raining on Monday and not raining on Tuesday. Blimey. You actually might get sun. Can you believe that?
No.
But it will be raining on Wednesday and raining on Thursday and raining on Friday and raining next Saturday and raining on Sunday and raining on Monday and raining on Tuesday and raining on Wednesday and raining on Thursday and raining on Friday and every day for the rest of your lives. But not right now in Glasgow. Excellent time to visit. Till about 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Rob says the public has got fed up with XR, Stop Oil, and the other groups that have disrupted their lives, at times grievously. We have seen the public resort to dragging these peaceful protesters out of the road. One from Stop Oil allegedly had a foot run over the other day by a car. These dumb tactics have alienated much of the public, and that has given momentum to the legislation that is now being imposed. Well, it's given cover to the legislation that has now been imposed, Rob, because I don't believe that that's why they have imposed this legislation. They've imposed the legislation so that people can't protest the regime. But as for disrupting lives, name one thing, one advance that the human race has achieved. Just in this country, I'll make it easy. One thing that we have achieved, one right that we have actually won for ourselves without disruption. There isn't any. That's the nature of protest. It has to be disruptive, otherwise nobody notices. Crayford, hello Terry.
Oh, hi Nick. Glad you're all back at full strength.
Oh, thanks.
I don't know whether you used any of the remedies. Some of them sounded a bit weird.
Weird, yeah. No, I didn't. I just waited for it to go, and eventually it went.
Hooray. I just wanted to thank you for the call-out last night. I'm the mum you said hello to. You were talking to my daughter. She phoned up that she's so upset about the clocks not going back.
Oh, right.
So, because I'm the one who told her. And the last time I spoke to you, actually, we were talking about Slipknot and the video.
Which video was that?
The Psycho Sanct or Sacra Psycho, something it's called.
You're talking about the band Slipknot.
The band Slipknot, yeah,
Right.
that's what I spoke about last time.
You did. You don't sound like somebody who would be a fan of Slipknot.
Well, I think this particular video, as I said, just shows the ruin of this country.
Oh.
So that's what it brought to mind.
Right.
But I just wanted a quick one tonight. I did not swear an oath of allegiance to our beloved king. The reason being, I cannot swear an oath of allegiance to someone who said they wanted to be a woman's medical product.
You have a very strong policy about that.
I absolutely do.
Right, I understand. Okay, duly noted. Thanks a lot, Terry. 0345 6060 973. Keith texts, I remember watching snooker in black and white. Yeah, me too. And for those watching in black and white, the ball at the edge of the table is the yellow ball. Completely pointless. Kevin says, I was with my wonderful neighbour Barbara today and she was talking about Keir Starmer, but mistakenly called him Steer Karma. And I thought of you. Isn't that just the greatest nickname for our future leader? We really need some calm steering to drive us away from our incumbent politicians.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, a little bit of boredom wouldn't go amiss right now, political-wise. Politically speaking. That's a better way of putting it. Politically speaking. Yeah, a little bit of boredom wouldn't go amiss. Now then, who's been waiting the longest? New York. Dave.
Hi, Nick.
Dave.
Yeah, I found the coronation spine tingling as well as Judy. The fact that the UK is now a police state with unlawful arrests of peaceful demonstrators is spine tingling.
It is shocking.
Anyway, 30p Lee has weighed in. I'm not sure if you've seen what he's had to say today.
No, what's he said today?
He said anyone who's anti-monarchy, instead of exercising their right to protest, they should leave the country.
Yeah, right. How about he leaves the country?
That.
Yeah.
Anybody with a brain, anybody who thinks for themselves, basically, if they all left the country, you'd just be left with a country full of Lee Andersons.
Well, I wonder if we had a vote, he would get more than 50% of the people supporting him. And if he didn't, would he perhaps leave the country? Because that would be the will of the people.
That's true. Anyway, there really are a lot of brain-dead idiots in the government these days. You might take some convincing on that, but there are.
Not really.
Believe me.
No.
And anyway, I've been watching various Tories. I mean, Lee Anderson's way up there, but I've been watching various other Tories come up with excuses for why they lost over 1,000 seats the other day.
It's Jeremy Corbyn's fault. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeremy Corbyn.
Jonathan Gullis is blaming Jeremy Corbyn.
He isn't.
He was, for losing Stoke-on-Trent, the council. Yeah.
How is it Jeremy Corbyn's fault?
Well, yeah, exactly. How is it Jeremy Corbyn's fault? I don't know.
He did not.
In his head, it's Jeremy Corbyn's fault.
I just like the look on his face, that the sort of crestfallen look. He was sort of contemplating his own future, thinking, "Oh, Struth, I'm going to have to get a proper job now."
But I wasn't sure if I should feel sorry for Greg Hans, who had to do the rounds yesterday.
Yeah, no. No, you shouldn't.
But he was blaming it on Vladimir Putin.
Yeah,
the fact that they lost 1,000 council seats.
Everything is either Vladimir Putin's fault, or it's COVID's fault, or it's the EU being mean to us.
Yep, I know, yeah. It's shocking.
Yeah. Even from 3,000 miles away, you can see that. Yeah.
Well, I did get up early this morning. I got up at 4 o'clock my time this morning to watch the coronation.
Wow.
It was as dull, for entertainment value only, really, but it was as dull as I expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean,
I was expecting a few more laughs, but I didn't get too many of those.
No, it was, I suppose. I mean, I guess they were hampered by the tradition of the actual event. They had to sort of stick to the script, but the script was, I don't know, it just didn't. It didn't interest me. I mean, I watched the whole thing, but I just got really bored.
Yeah, there was one good bit after when they opened the mall up after the event. The BBC. I was watching it on BBC online, and there was a camera down the mall, and there was a fight started between some monarchists and the Republic guys. Yeah, but then the BBC just cut away.
Oh, well, that's what I would have imagined.
I was hoping. I was hoping they were going to show a bit more, but they didn't, unfortunately.
No. All right, good to talk to you. Thanks a lot, Dave. 0345 6060 973. John texts, if Father Ted and Dougal had been on the Mall with their sign, down with this sort of thing, they would have been arrested. See, I've got no idea about Father Ted. It's something I haven't watched, but yes, they probably would have done. David says, cricket, snooker, bowls and curling, all hypnotic, but are they really sports? Cricket, my instinct is to say no, it's not a sport, but I suppose if you squint, it might, on occasion, look like one. Snooker definitely isn't. No, it's a pastime. It's a pastime for pale youths that look like they've never seen the sun. They spend their entire lives in the basement of some building. Bowls is also a pastime, as is curling. So just cricket then, and only barely could that be considered a sport. I hope you're taking notes. Peter says, I'm shocked that you are not speaking in that special, slightly hushed and reverential royal voice that all broadcasters have to use on days like this. You should be ashamed. Peter, I am ashamed. And Cindy says, did you see any of today's coronation? Well, Cindy says claptrap, but I won't say that. Did you see any of today's coronation? Says Cindy. No, let me read the rest of it just in case. So, yeah, too soon, Cindy. Too soon. Let's see. I do want to talk about when Wills and Whatsit met that TikTok person, because that was one of the most bizarre things that happened this week in a week of bizarre things. Islington, Adam. He's been waiting 34 minutes. Well, I suppose he may have been refreshed before he made the call.
Booze.
Yeah, it's possible. Let's see if I can't wake him up. This will usually do it. No. Nope. maybe the full thing. Calling Adam. Wake up, mate. It's later than you think. I think you have like restricted tubes. Maybe like putting your face over a bowl of steam might loosen it up there. I think you need to get rid of some. I'm sorry to have to use this word, phlegm. Yeah, it's restricting your breathing there, Adam. I would contact a medical professional straight away. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC.
This is LBC. This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
Yeah! Dude!
Nick texts, I was wondering if you saw Princess Anne's hat today. Why does she have to dress like a pirate? Yeah, I was wondering what that hat was about as well. He says, I gave that up on my 4th birthday, but she looks like she fell out of a fancy dress shop. A little bit, yeah. I really don't know what that hat was about. But there were very many hats which were confusing to me. And on the subject of clothes and clobber in general, Joan texts, did anyone find the white glove a bit freaky? Well, there was only one of them. Seemed a bit strange. Like Michael Jackson. A little bit odd. Scunthorpe. Hello, Tim.
Hey, how you doing, Nick?
Good, thanks.
Couple of things while I was looking there today got me a bit. Do you know the bit you were mentioning that the sparkly sword today during the procession? Did you see the bit though, which I thought was a bit? Hang on a minute. What does this represent? I think the bishop attached it to the king's hip on the side there for a moment. I can't remember which way it was round. However, it then got handed back to the air hostess, as the chap mentioned.
Yes.
And then she passed it over to the bishop, who...
Where'd he go?
A purse.
Your phone died there for a second, Tim. So he passed it to the bishop. Then what happened?
Right, the bishop then puts it onto the cenotaph bit, whatever it is, and then
on the table,
on the table, yeah. And then the air hostess then also gives a purse to the bishop. Did you catch that bit? Yeah. So it was a payment for it, and then
that's right
to take it back. So really, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, one, we should know the price of how much that thing costs because they've just paid for it. And the second thing is, what is actually in the purse? But anyway, I thought that was a bit materialistic. But the second point I was thinking about in the main was...
Well, if you read the lyrics of our national anthem, it is all about us, poor dopes who pay taxes, giving our best stuff to the majesty of the day.
Yeah, it's a representation of that, yeah. The second thing I was going to mention, though, mate, was the business about King Charles. You know these Wednesday meetings the Prime Minister has with the King?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I've been thinking about it. I think it's going to be literally gloves off time, And I know it's in confidence, but I can't see King Charles III as with all his... business to do with global warming, and he's so passionate about all this. I can see quite a bit of fisticuffs going on in those meetings, and I was sort of thinking, I know there's some, I can't remember the expression, I was told it once, I can't remember what it is, but I think it's something like the King can say to a Prime Minister something to the effect of, far be it from me or another person to suggest to you that this should happen, but basically get on with it and do it that way, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it works quite like that, but I think he can I think they can have influence. It's how it's worded, but
well, they can have direct influence on law. Laws are passed by the monarch of the day, and they can change laws if they think that it will benefit them financially, for instance. And that is it's not a commonly known thing, but that is their prerogative. If a law will ruin the view out of one of their palaces, or if it will inconvenience them financially, then they can get that law struck out. Yeah.
Yeah, and finally, just a real quick one. I was just thinking also the business about I forgot what I was going to say now. It was a business about the actual materialistic value of what went on today. I mean, I understand that the orb was the orb and the sword's the sword and all that type of thing, and I thought that's part of the majesty of it all. Yeah, I understand that. But again, I was detached from thinking that because we're living in a cost of living crisis, etc., that was, well, if we sell them, we can buy another 6 hospitals or something. I don't think that quite correlates across, to be honest.
I think we could build another 1,000 hospitals. We could carpet this entire country in hospitals. I was mesmerised by the size of the diamond in the stick, whatever that was called, the spangly stick. I think it's the biggest. Is it not the biggest diamond that has ever been discovered? And I think they cut it in half, and one half went in the crown, and the other half went in the big gold spangly stick. And,
because the old stuff got smashed up, didn't it?
And the price of it, I looked it up on the net, and it was, well, people disagreed about what the price of the diamond would be, and they went anything from like £300 million to £1 billion. I guess if it came up at auction, then Fiona off the Antique Roadshow would have a fit.
Well, I think the biggest the shake-up that Mr. Sunak will have is if the King says to him, about these green belts you expect to plant, build on, and he goes, yeah. He said, it'd be great if you sort of said to him something like, have you thought about asking the daffodils and the trees what they think about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I seriously think that's the kind of conversation that they'll have. But interesting thought there, Tim. A little bit out there. 0345 6060 973. Jim says, you're right about Back to the Future, the musical. It is fantastic. I never wanted to go because the film was so good, but it is terrific. It really is. It's the kind of thing you think, oh, that'll be terrible. It's like one of those musicals. It's just like a jukebox musical, or there's loads of them. The West End is absolutely stuffed full of productions that are either about films or they are just jukebox musicals of the hits of whatever band is the subject of the production. But I'm telling you, Back to the Future is great. I think they just had a change of cast. The guy who used to play Doc was very good. He was in The Producers, the most recent film of that Mel Brooks did. Just terrific. But anyway, the cast has changed, but the show remains the same, I would imagine, and it is well worth your money, even though it does cost so very much. East Yorkshire, hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick, yeah. I was just wanting to go back onto the arrest this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Because, do you remember the guy who threw eggs at Prince Charles and he got a suspended sentence?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, well, he attended this morning and got arrested. And he was arrested on suspicion of having eggs to throw at the king.
Right. Did he have eggs?
No.
Right.
But they didn't tap him down and look in his bag. They arrested him and held him for so many hours until after the event. And my attitude on this largely is that when we've got to the point of preemptive arrest, like they did with the Republican people, and this guy, then we've crossed the line. And people are really wary of this, because that's completely and utterly out of order.
People won't be wary of it, though. The majority will think, oh, well, we've got nothing to worry. If you're not doing anything wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. And they will continue to have that opinion until these kind of draconian laws do apply to them, as they eventually will. and then they'll be upset, and then it'll be too late.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing that hit me this week was when these laws passed through Commons earlier in the week, there was a police statement, and they said, we're going to endeavour to miss no opportunity to enforce the new powers we've got.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, that is worrying, because that's like, we're going protest the hunting at the weekend. That very statement that they're actively going to try and use every opportunity to impose the new regulation. That is protest the hunting, Nick. And if people don't realise that this is what's coming down the track, I think it's, for me, it's a line crossed. I'm not a complete snowflake, and I think sometimes some of these protests could have been handled quicker and resulted in less inconvenience to the public.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, this is going the other way by a mile.
But the thing is, I mean, I maintain my original position that nothing valuable has ever been achieved that did not create some sort of disturbance or inconvenience to people. I mean, like women's votes, the having a weekend, all trade union achievements, all of it. They had to protest in order to get it. You don't get given it; you've got to take it. And what they're protesting about, I'm not talking about the protesting about the laws, but protesting about climate change and the use of oil and opening up coal fire stations and the lack of insulation in our leaky homes in this country. All of that's justifiable to bring to the attention of the people who then can make the government act in the interests of the people, but without disruption, then the message doesn't get through, and we'll just continue along this ruinous path until our sofas are floating out of our living room windows because the waters will have risen so much.
I quite agree. And talking of protest, did you see the clip of the Celtic fans chanting?
No.
The Celtic fans were chanting, "You can shove your coronation."
Okay, all right, okay. Well, that's Celtic fans for you. They tend to express themselves in the clearest possible way. All right, thanks for that, Mike. 0345 6060 973. I do want to talk about Wills and what's it, and that TikTok influencer. God, I hate even saying that word, influencer. But it was just so weird. Everything about it was strange. So I'll come back with that and plenty else besides. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at midnight, the Metropolitan Police says it understands the public's concerns after arresting 52 people during Coronation Day. Activists from one anti-monarchy group and also Just Stop Oil were detained. The force says it received information. Some protesters were determined to disrupt the event. The human rights campaigner, Peter Tatchell, has been telling LBC the group Republic had promised police they would hold a peaceful demonstration, but were still detained.
I feel very, very angry at the way in which the police went back on their promises. They broke their word, and I think Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police, has questions to answer. Why did these officers say one thing just 2 days ago and then do something different today?
Also this evening, a member of Westminster Council says she's deeply concerned by reports volunteers who work on women's safety were arrested during the early hours of Saturday morning. The Metropolitan Police says it detained 3 people who've now been released on bail pending further inquiries on the suspicion of conspiracy to commit public nuisance and seized a number of rape alarms. The force says intelligence was suggesting similar devices may be used to disrupt the King's coronation procession. The 2-hour coronation ceremony did go ahead without incident, though. It was watched by millions and took place before the King and Queen Camilla were greeted by thousands of people on the Mall in central London. The historic service was led by the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Will you solemnly promise and swear to govern the peoples of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, your other realms and the territories to any of them belonging or pertaining, according to their respective laws and customs.
I solemnly promise so to do.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says it's becoming very concerned about the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. It's issued a statement saying action must be taken to prevent the threat of a severe nuclear accident after it emerged the residents of a nearby town, where most of the plant's staff live, are being evacuated. Staff from the agency who were at the power plant, so they are continuing to hear shelling nearby. And it's emerged 3 people who were stabbed to death in East London on Friday night. All were attacked within the space of 8 hours. In separate attacks, a 16-year-old boy was attacked as he left a school in Walthamstow, and a man in his late 20s died at an address in Hackney. An 18-year-old has also been injured near Dagenham Heath tube station. LBC weather: rain spreading across eastern and northern parts of the UK overnight, with a low in places of 3 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Tim Daly.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Hello.
Everything is going extremely well.
You bet your life it is. 0345 6060 973. Paul says, I hope your doors are locked. The Thought Police are on their way. I'm expecting you to be dragged off the air anytime soon. It is weird. This is a weird place that we're in this country right now. It's like when you hear stuff in the news that applies to us, that you would not be surprised if it came out of the mouths of the leaders of Russia or China, then we're in a very, very strange place. Too strange. Susie says, the 8 across to 6 abreast was fabulous. I was waiting for unicorns jumping over rainbows and bluebirds of happiness. Yeah, the rain stopped them appearing, unfortunately, Susie. That and the fly past. Truncated. Dave says, my wife just thought there were too many chairs for the King and the Queen. Stand up, kneel down, stand up, sit in the throne, stand up, back to the first seat, and so on. Yeah, I guess so. Let's have West Devon. Hello, Rose.
Oh, hello, Nick. Just 2 things, really.
Yeah.
The first is that, funnily enough, I thought of ringing in to you about something you said last night, and then Lulu did a similar thing, that lovely girl at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to say was this one. You just gave us the most wonderful euphemism. If the weather went very bad and the fly past crashed into Buckingham Palace, the day would end on a sour note.
Yes.
A sour note.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yes.
It would put a kink into the proceedings. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and the other thing is, it's relevant to the whole protest business, which I agree with you and Mike. I mean, it's just terrifying, this business. But it's relevant, being the climate crisis ones I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And also, we all have different things that bring a lump to the throat. And the willow warblers have arrived.
They have?
And, yes. Well, one willow warbler's arrived.
Right. What does a willow warbler look like? I'm going to look it up on the internet. Does it have long legs?
No, that would be a wader.
Oh, wader, yeah. Willow...
Tiny willow warbler. It's a tiny little green and yellow thing, the size of a blue tip, but a bit more slender.
Oh, yeah, it's like a browny round thing with a beak.
That's sort of it, yes. But if you look very closely, you know, which I did with binoculars.
Yeah.
It's greeny yellow.
Yeah, like a greeny yellow browny thing with a beak. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And it's a lovely tinkly song, you see, Nick. And it was coming from a small willow tree, funnily enough, a pussy willow tree, not a weeping willow. And it's a little short phrase ending in a flourish, repeated.
Like this?
Oh, is that it? Yeah, go on again.
Like that?
Yes,
a little Tweety bird.
Lovely, isn't it? And 4 hours later, I came back, and it was, I don't know whether, I think it wouldn't have been there before. Yes. Doing this song over and over again.
What's remarkable about
tiny little things?
Yeah, what's remarkable about those tiny birds is how loud they are. How do they make that much noise?
Yeah, well, a wren is very loud, and that's the smallest, isn't it? Just about.
Well, I can recognise a robin when I see one, but that's about it. A robin and a blackbird. Other than that, I'm lost.
Yeah, robins. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. They are such strong sounds.
Yeah.
Incidentally, it's come from West Africa.
Has it?
If you can get your head around that, yes. It's what? I mean, how long is it? About an inch and a half. You know, it's just. So,
and it flies all the way, I mean, quite possibly non-stop. I mean, I don't know that that's true, but it doesn't prevent it from being a fact.
It being a fact, no.
Non-stop, can you believe that?
I think that this, well, you see, we just hope there are going to be more of them, because I remember last year I was somewhere and I could hear them rather than it.
Oh, yeah.
This is the sort of worrying thing, and I think the event of the willow warbler's arrival and the swallows, when I see them, is more important than this coronation. And by that, I don't mean we shouldn't be discussing this coronation. We definitely should. But, I think it's...
Yeah, well, once the birds don't come no more, then you know that is an indication that we've got something seriously awry. Yeah.
Well, there's no point in living, is there? I mean, I wouldn't want to live without birds.
Let's not get carried away.
No, I seriously mean that. I do.
What I meant was that if the birds don't come, then it's because that they don't have any food here anymore. And if they don't have any food here anymore, that's probably an indication that the insects have died off even more than something like the 90-odd% of die-off of insects we've had since the 1970s. And if the insects go, then we're in big trouble because we ain't got nothing to eat no more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I tell you what, I'll swear allegiance to them rather than his chosness.
Right. Okay. Just as long as you don't say that out loud, Rose, because that is an arrestable offence. You understand that, don't you?
God, I could smash their faces in. Come and arrest me, blimey.
Right, my money's on you. Place your bets. All right, thanks a lot, Rose. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Lorraine says, did you see the picture online in The Independent of that cloaked, spooky figure with a scythe inside the ceremony? I did, yeah. That was a bizarre occurrence. Did look like death had just shown up. Very strange. I don't know who that actually was or why they were dressed like that, but I think it was just a play of the light, trick of the shadows, something like that. Let's talk to Brussels. Hello, Emma.
Hello there. And your previous call is absolutely right. We do need to pay attention to our birds because they tell us how the world's going.
That's right.
Because they are. So I thought. So for example, here the swifts last year, the last 2 years, arrived on the 3rd of May, and this year they arrived on the 2nd of May. So you'd think, well, that's a good thing. Well, not necessarily, because that means maybe global warming means that they're coming earlier than they should do before the insects are ready for them. So it's an absolute alarm call.
Well, maybe they just had an appointment to make. They had to leave a day early in order to make an appointment. It's possible.
Something like that, as long as it wasn't for a dentist.
Yeah.
But
you wouldn't come to this country to get an appointment with a dentist, would you?
No, well, that's why I live
here. Takes 6 months.
But no, my point was about the coronation, and I suppose I watched it just from that human perspective, just watching. At the end of the day, you're watching human beings, and it's really interesting. There was a beautiful moment where what's she called? Oh God, Cherry Booth had that interaction with John Major, and obviously Norma Major's not well, and it was just sort of beautiful, very human, and just not for the camera. She probably didn't even realise there was a camera on her.
I didn't see that. I missed that.
Yeah, so Norma wasn't with him, so presumably she's not well, and he was sort of going, it's okay. And it was just so beautiful and so human. And then after that, it was all stiff and kind of kissing between the previous prime ministers. But I think that's the thing I enjoyed watching about it. And then there was a bit where everyone was watching Harry, of course, and he was talking to the husband of his cousin.
Is that who that was? Right.
They had a long old chat, and I'm like, gosh, I'm not a lip reader, but there must have been something there that somehow is going to be splashed in some tabloid.
Well, it occurred to me that he wasn't really talking to the lady on his left very much, who was there apparently on her own. I don't know who she was, but I think it might have been, a little bit considerate of him if he had just had a little chit-chat with her, but his attention was all on the bloke who was sitting on his right. Yeah.
But it wasn't his fault, though. He was being drawn in. He was sitting there trying to be, non-interested in anything and trying to just be non-talk. But to be fair to him, and I have to say, as much as I'm not a royalist, that guy, if he does what he looks like he's going to do...
Harry,
he's going to sue all the papers that have... effed over his family.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll find out, I suppose. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Emma. 0345 6060 973. Sally says, the best bit for me was that Liz Truss obviously thought that if she gave the Leader of the Commons job to Penny Mordaunt, she could bury her in the most mediocre position possible, only for her to be seen on screen more than the King. That's right. I'm surprised you couldn't hear her teeth grinding to the beat of the drum. Yeah, some wag, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, some wag put up the logo of Poundland, which is the exact same design that she was wearing on that cloak hat thing that Penny Mordaunt had on. She was a representative for Poundland. I didn't know that you could actually advertise during such an auspicious event. Anne says, I thought Charles might break the fourth wall and flick a wink to the camera during his performance, but you thought that in vain. And Steve says, I remember the first thing I watched in colour on my rich neighbour's TV was the Flintstones, over 60 years ago. Well, that would have been a good thing to see in colour. Me, it was cricket.
Boring!
I mean, apart from anything else, it was only green. That was the only colour that was on. Green. That was no good. So you're just waiting desperately for, ordinary TV to start. 1960, whenever it was. And I'm sure that pretty much the first programme after the cricket would have been the news, which is also not really something you want to watch in colour. 0345 6060 973. I do want to talk about Wills and what's it with that TikTok bloke. It was just so weird. In a weird week, that was right at the top. Right at the top of my weird list. So I'll maybe talk about that in a minute. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC.
18 plus. Be gamble aware.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What's he got to be depressed about?
0345 6060 973. Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Hi, good evening, Nick.
Jan.
Hi. Yeah, I enjoyed watching this coronation, but the thinking about it afterwards and also through it, there's just so many disjoints or disjunctures between things. Like, for instance, the two one of them was that afterwards thinking about, I didn't know that the monarch was chief of all the forces, the RAF.
Yeah, he has the highest rank, regardless of his or her abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, the RAF, and all the head of so much.
All of it.
But take her in that spectacle, the amazing spectacle that it was with all the forces there. Take out all those forces, and it wouldn't really be much of a spectacle, would there?
There wouldn't be anything left. No,
I mean not in the streets. You know what I mean?
It's a military parade. There was no one else parading but the military, I think.
But yet they have no power, do they? I mean, the monarch has no. I don't know what sort of power they have over there. I was trying to find out, but there's such a disjoint between what you see and what is actually, there. I mean, it's weird.
You mean that the monarch doesn't have any power over the military, and yet it's the military that was providing all the pomp and the parading.
Yeah, take them out of it, and there wouldn't be much of a spectacle. I mean, but going into the church, it was really a church service. The coronation was
a religious service. I mean, it was
because the mass
if you took the religion out of that service, and there wouldn't have been much left.
No, there's a tradition, but also it's. I think they were addressing the multi-faith. Look, Sunak was there. He's a Hindu, and he was doing a reading.
Well, I restate my case about that. They did all of the religions apart from the most popular one, which is no religion.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that there is no really. People are spiritual, though. People only have to lose someone close to them, and they have these go through these sort of.
Yeah, but that's not religion. That's sadness.
Oh no, I don't mean bereavement. I mean just that people have a spiritual dimension to them. You do. Everyone has, don't they?
I don't know. What do you mean by spiritual dimension? Like what?
Well, that we're not just flesh. You know.
You mean we believe that something happens after death? I don't think that's true.
Well, look, it's a multi-faith society, so it's not just Christian, is it?
I restate my case. The biggest faith is none of the above.
Well, they had the different denominations there. You know, the Catholic.
Yeah. Apart from everyone was represented, apart from those that don't believe any of the above.
But no, I think Justin Welby, the Archbishop, made it quite clear that people didn't have to do the allegiance if they didn't want to.
Yeah, but that's not really anything to do with what we're talking about, though.
I think Justin Welby...
and you've forgotten to turn your radio off, so you're hearing what you said 6 seconds ago, and it's going to be a problem. It'll fry your brain. Yeah.
But it's. Well, I think we're yet to see what will happen, because although it seems like they're popular there, I mean there's all the problems underneath. Like the Gurkhas were there, the Gurkhas were represented there. Yet there's a big thing going on about the Gurkhas who helped fight in the war.
Yeah. Well, we don't want them coming over here taking our jobs. It's absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Get rid of them. They're trying to say they can't stay in England, and that's heartbreaking for them, because they're so there's a lot of.
Well, it makes you think. I mean, the rest of the world is paying attention to how we treat those who help us, and badly is the answer to that question. Yeah.
Even our own military is, it's on its feet, isn't it? In a way, with underfunded and everything. However much Britain wants to go and help Ukraine, they haven't got the money.
We haven't got the money, and we haven't got the weaponry, and we haven't got the bullets, and we haven't got the equipment, and we haven't got the person power or any of the above. But we can certainly put on a good marching demonstration, no doubt about that.
Yeah, that was pretty stunning. But as I say, it's a big show of power, but there's real no power.
But we haven't got
there.
any power. No, our military power has waned. Yeah. Anyway, good to talk, Jan. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Harold says, are you aware that Boris broke the law today? I noticed he was holding Carrie's hand. He was locked on. Yeah. I think he was holding her hand in order to prop himself up. Is it just me, or does he always look like he's peering through a hangover?
Booze.
Yeah, it's maybe it's just the way he arranges his hair. Just so. Always just so. Nothing can ever get in the way of Boris Johnson's logo, which is that sort of unkempt, distressed child schoolboy. It makes people think he's harmless, which he isn't. Brings out their mothering instinct. Lauren says, King Charles doesn't have it easy. He has to wander around for hours in Wellington's shooting birds. That must be hard work, especially if he has to throttle them afterwards because he didn't shoot them properly. I have seen that. It's not nice, but, not me. I didn't do it, but I saw it. Mind you, if you're enjoying meat for dinner, then the bad news is they had to kill it before it got put on your plate. Sorry to break the news to you, but meat doesn't come on styrofoam trays wrapped in plastic on the supermarket shelf. It used to be a part of an animal before it got there. Sad to say. Rich emails, struggling to see much coverage about Prince William, perhaps the next soon-to-be future king in our lifetime. Kate, George, Charlotte, Louis and others seem to have more coverage today. If it was a training session for him, a big well done. Well, the Prince and Princess of Wales. Now, that would be like a pop quiz. Prince and Princess of Wales. Anyone? Time's up. It's Wills and What's It. And yesterday, no, 2 days ago now, the couple brushed shoulders with what is called internet royalty. This is a story from the Mail. They brushed shoulders with internet royalty when they filmed a hilarious video with TikTok star Francis Bourgeois. Hilarious, yes?
No.
No. Deeply embarrassing and quite unsettling. What is it about TikTok stars, or just people who are called influencers in general? There seems to be something about them. So Prince William, 40 years old. And Kate Middleton, 41, travelled from Acton to Tottenham Court Road on the Elizabeth line to visit the Dog and Duck pub in Soho. There's never, in all the time that trains have run, been a carriage so hygienically clean. No mysteriously damp seats. No chewing gum on the floor. Windows so clean you could actually see out of them. Can you believe that?
Yes.
Yes, of course you can, because it's always that clean whenever a royal goes anywhere. And why did they go on the Elizabeth line to a pub that they will never go in again? Got no idea. But it gets worse than pretending to pull pints for the cameras and asking people if they've come far. Because in an attempt to reach a younger audience, palace aides invited what is described in the Mail as internet royalty. He's a train spotter, and he looks like one. No offence. He's a nerdy-looking bloke who lives in Battersea and apparently has about 3 million followers on the TikTok video app, which is this year's title holder of the world's biggest waste of time. I mean, seriously, you should take a look at this bloke. He goes around with one of those little cameras. They call them GoPro cameras. The kind of thing that people wear when they go rock climbing or they jump out of a plane or something like that. They strap it to their head like a miner's lamp. And you might think, oh, that's an interesting idea. So they can take a video of, wherever they go and the people they meet and so on. Of course not. The camera's pointed the other way, inwards at his own face. In the modern manner. Have you ever seen a generation of people who are so fascinated by their own bloomin' face? I mean, for crying out loud. We used to have, before phones, we used to have a camera function that took a selfie. If you recall, back that far, you used to be able to set a little timer and you put it on a rock and then you ran in front of the camera and you did a thumbs up. And people would almost never use it. You could have that camera for your entire life and you would have used it maybe once or twice. Now, people never, ever take a picture of anything else but their bloomin' face. And so this guy goes around with a video camera pointing, strapped to his head on a little arm and taking a picture of his face wherever he goes. Not the places that he goes, but his face in those places. 3 million people follow him. I mean, and I'm sorry, but I don't care how many followers you get. I mean, this is an indication of inadequacy, social inadequacy, to me. Why do you need to take so many pictures of your own bloomin' face? I mean, how desperate are you for the approval of strangers? But it's what the kids spend all their time doing. I mean, they've ditched the telly, which has actual programmes written by talented people and acted by talented people, and they've said, no, thanks, we'd rather watch some overgrown child on a skateboard recording his own face in close-up. I mean, we've got to stop praising these people. Influencers. We've got to stop according them some sort of social significance just because they can get millions of dopey kids to gawp at their silly dancing or their lip-syncing or however many pictures of their own blooming face they can take in a day. They're not interesting or serious people. The thing with all of them that I can think of is they just act like permanent children for the approval of strangers. And adults, royalty, are trying to ingratiate themselves with these influencers, as they're laughably called, because it's something they aren't a part of, that they don't understand, but they see the numbers of kids that follow them online and they want a piece of that action. Hey, kids, if you stop liking these people, they'll all vanish in a second because there doesn't appear to be anything to them. They're famous for having accidentally garnered views. All of them started with 0 followers. And some, like winning the lottery, just lucked into fame. But it's not fame that's based on anything. I've run out of time. I've got plenty more that I want to say, but in a moment, maybe. I'll take a breath. 0345 6060 973. It's 12:30 on LBC, the news headlines with Tim Daly.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
A big sack of monkey nuts.
Yep, that's what I think. 0345 6060 973. Let's have a call in Dewsbury. Abigail.
Hello, hi. I thought I'd say something that's not been mentioned. I don't think I've been listening to your show. They didn't just arrest the one protester today. Do you know the volunteers last night at 2 a.m. that actually are Met sanctioned, to go out and hand out rape alarms, and the part of the safety network, that's what they do. They go around help, women at night in London, I believe. I was reading about it. Mm-hmm. They actually got arrested for fear. They said that now that it took a few hours for the Met to come up with a statement, or some might say excuse. Mm-hmm. They said the rape alarms would affect the horses, and I thought, so the big massive cannons that are barring on at the back, apparently the horses are not affected by that. But rape alarms, rape alarms.
Well, that is an interesting point, yeah.
I mean, that's what I've heard it on your news as well. Mm-hmm. And people on Twitter are like, well, it's only taken quite a few hours to come up with that excuse, you know what I mean? But what got me was the volunteers, and it says that these volunteers, have been sanctioned. The Met sanctioned these people to help women at night. Yeah. To help to give out the rape alarms. Right. I mean, and it's just that. I'm sorry, but is this Swallow Braverman's work that has told them all to do this to go to get everybody arrested?
I don't know whether it is, but let's just assume that is the case.
Well, don't you think it's scary? We're in North Korea.
Yes, I think that we are now. Our dear leader should now be referred to as Kim Il-Sunak. Yeah.
I just thought that was incredible, and it took apparently these poor volunteers that were in tears 14 hours in the police cell. Why is it taking them so long in the police cell? That's a bit to be. What, to not even be, charged or anything? That is a long time. That's a long time.
This is also the first week that they have been gifted these powers, and they have been using them like they're going out of style. But, of course, they're not. They're here to stay, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing a lot more stories just like that. So keep your eyes open there, Abigail, and let us know straight away if you catch something. All right.
No problem.
All right, thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. So, back to this, am I right? I mean, all right, let me put it another way. Am I wrong? Influencers, in general, all look like they've got, I don't know, they're sort of stuck in a sort of perpetual childhood. They don't look quite right. Like they lucked into making a living, which I'm sure that some of them do, by just being perpetual children. And so they, for some mysterious reason, the two royals, Wills and Whatsit, wanted to ingratiate themselves with this this TikTok kid who does train spotting. Just because, I imagine, it certainly must have been a function of their thinking. 3 million followers. Because 3 million other dopey kids follow this guy taking pictures of his face wherever he goes. I mean, I'm very disappointed with the kids. I just find them disappointing. He's a social media star, apparently. And he posted what is described in the Mail as a hilarious video with William and Kate. Not hilarious. Spoiler alert. Not even mildly amusing, just weird. Weird that a grown-up can go around taking videos of his own face and talking like he's a 5-year-old. I mean, as a science experiment, I forced myself to watch one of his videos where he interviewed someone, and it was just embarrassing. And this is what the royals are trying to align themselves with, in a desperate hope that young people will think that a pair of middle-aged, stiff old duffers like Wills and Whatsit are cool and down with the kids. I mean, it appears as though the kids aren't very good judges of what is entertaining. Maybe we should stop following the kids for advice on what's up and what's down. Okay, here's the hilarious video, in case you haven't seen it. It's a short clip, opens with Luke, this bloke, walking through Tottenham Court Road, wearing his GoPro, strapped to his head, pointing at his face, naturally. He said, have you ever found yourself at Tottenham Court Station wanting to go eastbound and the train you're waiting to get to is ready to go? Well, me too, pretty much every time. Are you laughing already? He then sprints through the station, and footage showing, of course, the close-up of his face. And after making it on the tube, he sees Kate and William getting ready to leave the train, and Kate says, very nice to meet you. And Luke struggles to get his words out, as a 5-year-old would. He's not 5, he's 22. But struggling to get his words out seems to be his thing. And he says, hi, nice to meet you. I hope you enjoyed the Elizabeth line. And that's it. Hilarious, no?
No.
No. Just stupid. And, of course, he uploaded the clip because what is life if it's not putting pictures of yourself up for strangers to like? And the Mail reports that since it was uploaded, so this is days old now, so it's probably way higher than this. He got almost 20,000 likes pretty much straight away. What a tremendous achievement. I mean, that ranks right up there with doing a day's work, doesn't it? And as for the ordinary members of this interaction, Wills and Whatsit, well, it was the couple's first trip on the Elizabeth line. But royal aides said the couple do occasionally... Wills and Kate do occasionally travel by tube in a private capacity. No, they don't. When did they ever travel by tube in a private capacity? Do me a favour. And after the journey from Acton to Tottenham Court Road, they were Wills and Whatsit were presented with gifts. A plaque, tile of a Transport for London roundel, that's the logo, inscribed with King Charles III, and a Transport for London roundel light box. Well, who doesn't get presents every time they travel the tube? It's all perfectly normal, and they'll put them with the other stuff that people insist on giving them wherever they go, where it will stay in some airless, windowless room collecting dust. It could be, I mean, no one really knows, but we can be certain that we paid for it. If Transport for London were giving it out, we paid for it already. You're welcome.
Thank you.
0345 6060 973. Lewisham. Hello, Barry.
Oh, hello, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Barry.
No, there. Right. I don't know if anyone's pointed this out yet, but for me, all right, I look at things from a distance. There's a mad constitutional irony here. So, the right to protest the right to free speech, the right to freedom of assembly, the right to peaceful protest, that is. These are constitutional rights. These are rights that should be imbued on the person. We should have these rights, along with the rights to life, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Constitution, that should be fundamental to our law, so that any law doesn't go outside of those boundaries. Right, that's what a constitution's for. The monarchy is a constitutional position. Yeah, but we appear to have put by the people's constitutional rights in favour of the monarchy's constitutional rights, and that appears to be a really weird situation because we are pledging allegiance to a monarch who has no power.
Oh, yes, he does.
For power for himself. Yeah, power for himself, yes, he does, but no power for the people. So who is looking after us? Who is representing the people?
Well, the person that is supposed to be representing the people is the person that the people vote for, but it's such a long time since we were given the opportunity to vote for one of these passing chances that I can't remember who it was. Well, in fact, it was this bloke.
Yeah. Wait.
And he performed so abysmally badly that his own party defenestrated him.
Yeah, exactly. And he is proof of the fact that there's actually a massive democratic deficit because actually Parliament is sovereign. Yeah.
Well,
so
it isn't because
it
isn't because the current regime is skipping by Parliament as much as they possibly can, and going straight to the lawifying, which was part of that sunsetting all of those EU laws. But Parliament didn't have any say about it. They were just going to go ahead and do it anyway.
Well, this is the massive point. The problem is that since the Second World War, because I know you don't like history, neither do I.
Oh
right?
no,
right.
history.
We hate history, but ultimately, history shows us that we have a problem. There was a revolution in many sort of places, and the revolution was supposed to occur here in order to give us democratic rights, because the king is a puppet of the aristocracy. Well, and that is what happened after the Civil War.
I don't know about puppet of the aristocracy. Historically speaking, I'm not going to talk. But right now, I don't think he's a puppet of the aristocracy. It might actually be... Well, they coexist. I don't think either of them are puppeteers.
Well, he's a tool that represents and benefits the aristocracy. Yeah, we can agree that he definitely maintains that system of power.
Yes.
So what we end up with is this constant situation of class, whereby all the people at the bottom, and I think Orwell must have been right, all the proletariats, we appear to be sycophantic over this class system where we must have this person lorded above us. I don't understand.
What I don't get is how the poorest among us seem to be the most keen on maintaining the status quo, which has made their lives miserable. It's made them poor. The reason that they go into food banks is not because they're too rich, it's because they haven't got any money. And yet that's the demographic who will defend the system that we have the most vociferously. And I just don't get that at all. It's like people have been brainwashed. Barry, I'm going to have to go, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Come on, we're running late.
0345 6060 973. Eastbourne. Hello, Michael.
Oh, hello, Nick. Nice to speak to you. I think personally, I want to bring the Civil War back into it.
Oh, no. More history.
I think the English Civil War should be taught in our schools the way the American Civil War is taught in their schools. And then we might have a better understanding of the point of the monarchy and how much power the king actually does have. The whole reason that the armed forces, 4,000 of them, were in the gardens of Buckingham Palace proclaiming the new king, and they don't do it for a new prime minister, is because of that separation of the powers. The whole reason for Black Rod is because of the Civil War. The whole reason he promised to uphold the Protestant faith is because of the Civil War. The reason Downing Street is called Downing Street is because of the Civil War. Every single aspect of every major royal occasion. All of it goes back to the Civil War, or if not to the Civil War, then to 1660. You know,
he used to pay for the military. Did the king? Don't do that no more.
Well, that's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason that Charles I could do what he did. You know, the British Constitution has never recovered from the fact that we cut the head off a king. Never. Well, and that's the reason for all these ceremonies. We're not like the French. We don't just do it and then move on. You know, it's all of it is about that. The whole thing is designed to make sure that we can never have another Charles I and we can never have another Cromwell. And that's what people are missing. People go on about, it's the pageantry that makes us British. The reason that we do this thing as well as we do is because we have to. Who else? There's just us and the French, who are one of two countries that cut the head off a king. And the Civil War caused so much destruction and cost so many lives that it can never happen again. That's why the Constitution, when the monarchy was restored, I mean, what Charles II was offered and accepted was the same thing that Cromwell offered Charles I, and he refused.
Right, OK, I'm staring out the window just dreaming of double games, because this is very much like a history lesson, which I forbid on this show. But
this is why we're British. People think, it's the pageantry that makes us British. There's a reason for the pageantry.
Right, well, any country can do pageantry. We're not the only country in the world that can get soldiers to march up and down.
Yeah, but we're only one of two countries that cut the head off a king. This is what it always comes down to. That's the whole point of what happened today.
Right, OK, fine. All right, thanks for the news. Cheers, Michael. 0345 6060 973. There's a couple of texts on that... I'll take a couple more calls, though, but it's interesting that, the best thing we do is military marching. So I'll give you a couple of texts. Not my work, somebody else's, in just a moment. Let's talk to Vincent in Liverpool. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, Nick. Are you all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Not bad. It was just a thing on there before, that woman said religious ceremony today. Well, I never knew that, but my cousin come in and says, "Oh God, you haven't still got this on." So I thought it probably is. He thought it was an old wedding video I had on. But jokes aside, the fellow who was just talking there, pity they've stopped cutting people's heads off. I went to the Liverpool match today, and Liverpool played the national anthem, and it got booed.
Booed, yeah, I saw that.
It got booed, but it got booed in the 70s, but it's certainly nothing to do with.
They knew that it was going to get booed before they played it. I mean, they were concerned about that beforehand, but they went ahead and did it anyway.
Exactly, Nick. It's ridiculous, isn't it? To actually do that at the end of the day.
I mean, if you keep doing things and you keep achieving the same results, but you keep doing them expecting something different to happen, then what's that a sign of?
Yeah. But there's people who make them decisions that realistically... To be honest, they're mad. But that's what I meant to say. But the fellow who loves the trains, you haven't seen a picture of the Flying Scotsman in the islands. Hey, you want to have a look at that? Hey.
I don't really understand what that means, but all right, leave it with me. Thanks, Vincent. Gloucester, Greg.
Nick.
Greg.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I might have just catched on to a little bit of the conversation, but you were talking about atheism in the service and how it wasn't represented.
Well, there was a lot of God.
There certainly was, but there was also one fantastic mention of one of the greatest atheist brains that we've got on this planet, and also one of the greatest brains that we've got on this planet in Stephen Fry. And in fact, he got more screen time than most others, I think. From
Stephen Fry? I didn't even know. I saw the whole thing. I didn't even know he was there. I didn't see him. I didn't see him on. No way. I'm not watching it again. I didn't see him at all. No screen time on my TV.
He was there. He was great.
Right.
He
was great.
He didn't sort of speak or anything.
Right. Well, he didn't do anything, but he was still great. That's the power of the man. He doesn't have to do anything, and he's still great.
He represented atheism. He represented.
I don't think that's what he was doing at all. He was just there because he got an invite. He wasn't representing anybody but himself.
but then he got an invite for a reason.
Yeah, because he's mates with the king.
Not sure he is.
I think he is.
I'm pretty
yeah,
sure the opposite is the case.
I don't think that's true at all. I think that they're chums.
I don't think they are at all.
Well, I believe that you're incorrect in that opinion, Greg. I think that they're actually chums. I mean, think about it for a second. Don't they seem like they would be chums? Yes. All right, thanks, Greg. 0345 6060 973. Chelmsford. Hello, Tom.
Oh, Nick. Hello, Nick.
Tom.
Yeah. Sorry about my text. I like you, really. What was it? Yeah.
What text?
You probably never read them anyway, so it doesn't matter.
No. If you hear me read it on the air, I've read it. If you don't hear me read it on the air, I haven't read it.
That's good to know. Subjects, you were talking about this man that had this camera pointed to his face. It's only really a bit of a bleak point, and a bleak point about just my personal experience, like talking personal experience. It was something I saw the day before yesterday, and I mistakenly came out of my house at school chucking out hours.
Uh-oh.
And there was this, and there was this group of girls, and she was on her phone, and she's, head down,
of course,
right? And she crashes into a lamppost, and she, boings off. She bounces off.
Well, she was walking or cycling?
No, walking.
Right.
No, they're all walking. She's with a group of friends, but she's on the end. She's on her phone, and she bounces off and it's like pinball.
Yes.
But she doesn't even look up from the phone.
Of course not.
So she sort of goes back a couple of paces and just carries on walking without ever even looking up.
No. They've got, excellent peripheral vision, the kids these days. They have to, because they never stop gawping at their phones.
And does seem to be a bit of a lack of, communication ability. And I'm not that much... I mean, I'm in my 30s, so I'm kind of...
Not that old, yeah.
Not where you can get in old. But, I mean, it's like, but, I mean...
They're not communicating with each other. The amount of times that you see a group of kids together and they're all staring at their individual phones, communicating with people who aren't there by typing. If you had told me 20 years ago that the number one activity for teenagers would be typing, I would have called you insane. But here we are.
It's not all that bad. I mean...
It is. It's worse. It's worse than that. They're typing with their thumbs alone.
I do wonder. I've been sitting waiting in doctor's surgeries. I've seen crying infants in prams. Well, not prams, but pushchairs, and being just handed tablets.
Yeah, just to get them to shut up.
Just to get them to shut up.
I know.
To watch.
That's what parenting is these days. Just hand them a tablet, and they'll shut right up. Yeah, it's like magic. All right, Tom, got to go. Thanks for that. A couple of texts to end. Pete says, I saw a few bits of the ceremony today. It just feels a bit dated now. Well, yes. Yeah, it's ancient. That's why. He says, I think the UK has turned a corner after the Queen passed. Yes, they do a good show, but all that pomp is getting old news now. I think it's probably because it was so hot on the heels of, or so close after the Queen's funeral, that it did seem like, this again. So I think you might have something there. Laura texts, it's such a shame that the best thing we do is military marching. If only the best thing we do was to look after our elderly and educate our children well by funding social services and teachers properly. And in a similar vein, Paul says, marching up and down in bearskins is what we do best, apparently. If only we could do something useful, like have a functioning economy or produce goods. Well, that's the sort of talk that'll get you arrested, Paul. Don't say it out loud. Now, if you missed any part of this super show or the Friday one, then you should know that we do a podcast service. Take the news and most of the ads out, stick it on Global Player. It's called Nick Abbot, The Whole Show Podcast. If you've got Global Player, then you can rewind live radio. If you haven't got it, you can download it free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. I'm going to be back tonight at 10 for my Sunday show. Coming up at 4, Ali Mirage. Right now, Crive Ball. Crive Ball. Crive Ball. Crive Ball, 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 Crive Ball.